This is Glenn Campbell coming to you from the beach in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm talking today about the mysteries of sleep. And I'm going to talk at length about this. I'm going to unravel all the mysteries of sleep for you based on my experience. No one really knows what sleep is. We don't know really why we need it. All we really know is that we need it. It performs some sort of reset function. We do things during the day, we collect experiences in our brain, and somehow this sleep function helps us organize these experiences and reset our brain. So we know that the sleep is essential. We know that if you don't have sleep, you go crazy. Essentially, if you've been deprived of sleep for a few days, you become psychotic. You become a schizophrenic person. You hear voices in your head. You can't tell reality from fantasy. So sleep is essential. Sleep is something that really constrains our lives because we know that every day we have to stop and become unconscious for a while. That constrains how we live. We live in homes. We live in places that are stable, because we need a safe place to sleep. In the modern world, you really don't need a home because everything you have is in the cloud nowadays, and everything you have is in portable devices. You don't need physical belongings, but you still need a place to sleep. So this is constraining to people, and to most people, sleep is a big mystery. They haven't a clue what's going on. And frankly, I don't have a clue what's going on. But I know an awful lot about the parameters of sleep that you might not know about. Since 2008, I have lived on the road, continuously on the road. So that's for over 3 years now. I have never slept in the same place, hardly. Every day, for example, in the past month, I've slept in cars, I've slept in motels, I've slept in hostels with 10 other people in the same room. I've slept in planes, I've slept in the woods, I've done it in every conceivable way. So I know a little bit more about the parameters of sleep and what is necessary. And in fact, the parameters of sleep are very flexible. You've got to be protected from predators when you sleep. You've got to be protected from people who will take advantage of your unconsciousness to hurt you. So you have to find some measure of protection. That doesn't necessarily have to be your own home, but it has to be a place where you know you're not going to be robbed as you sleep. You also have to have a certain amount of warmth. You have to be warm enough. You can't sleep, for example, in temperatures like this, about 60 degrees, without a great deal of a significant amount of padding and insulation to keep you warm. This jacket, for example, would not be enough, I know from experience, to keep me warm while I'm sleeping in this kind of cold. You need a certain amount of padding underneath you to sleep because you can't sleep on a hard floor, you can't sleep on stones, you need a little bit of padding. But beyond that, people sleep in a huge variety of circumstances. As I travel the world, I'm typically jet-lagged when I land in some place like Singapore or London. I travel the world, and I see people sleeping in extraordinary circumstances. They're sleeping in hammocks, they're sleeping in pads on the ground, and they all seem to get a fair amount of sleep. I've learned from this that I can sleep in a variety of circumstances. I can sleep in the woods if I need to sleep in the woods, because I know exactly what my body needs, and they're very simple requirements that I can usually fulfill. When I was first learning how to sleep, learning about sleep, when I was in my 20s, I set up a video camera over my bed and let it record for 8 hours while I slept, which is a fascinating experiment, and I think that you should try it too. Try recording yourself as you sleep to see what your sleep patterns are. And I found that about every a certain amount of time, let's say every half hour, I would turn in my sleep. That seems like a regular pattern of you're in one position, you turn over at certain set periods of time throughout the night. I assume that this means that your body is trying to protect you from bed sores, essentially. If you're lying in one position for an extended period of time, blood is going to pool in that position. Blood is going to be pinched off in that position, and eventually, if you're lying in that position for a long time, you get bed sores. This happens to hospital patients. The sleep function evidently knows about this and keeps you rotating during the night. So as I'm filming myself with a video camera, I see that I'm rotating, and I'm rotating, as I recall, I rotated only clockwise, around and around, and so that at the end of the night, I had my sheets all wrapped up around me. That was very curious to me. Another thing that deceived me for a while is the notion of sleep positions. I read an article saying that people in their late adolescence will develop a certain sleep position which they retain for their entire life. For example, some people sleep chiefly on their stomach. Some people sleep mainly on their back, and some people sleep on their sides. And after I read this article, I figured, this is something that you need to have in order to sleep. You need to be able to sleep on your side if you're a side sleeper. In fact, it's true. People have preferred sleeping positions, but they're not set in stone. And I've learned this from experience. I am chiefly, if given the option, I will sleep on my stomach. But I can sleep just as soundly in the back seat of a car, sleeping on my side. It's simply a matter of training yourself. And a lot of my skill of being able to sleep virtually anywhere is what I call sleep training. Just like you would train for a marathon, you can train yourself to sleep anywhere. You can train yourself to contort into all sorts of positions where you can get sound sleep in spite of the position. So the key, for example, to sleeping in a car is to be able to curl up in kind of a fetal position, because the back seat of a car is not long enough to stretch out on. So you bend your knees, you curl up into a fetal position, and you can sleep. You can learn how to sleep. You can train yourself how to sleep, just like training for a marathon. You do have to turn over, though. This is something that you may not realize, that you have to, periodic times throughout the night, I would say about every hour during the night, you have to turn, and your body is going to want to turn. If you're sleeping in the fetal position on a bench seat in the back of a car, you have to be able to turn over, and you can simply do this by flipping your head from one end of the car to the other. You really only need two positions. You need to be able to have access to two different positions. Then you can just flip back and forth between them. You don't have to have a dozen different positions. You just need to rest that spot where the blood has been pooling. You need to relieve that for about 20 minutes. Then you can go back to that spot again. Once you know this, you realize that you can sleep in a lot of different circumstances that aren't a posturepedic bed. Now, people are constrained by what they believe they need for sleep. So people have been sold this fantasy by the mattress manufacturers that says you can only sleep in certain circumstances. You can only sleep on our memory foam posturepedic mattress. And people believe this, and it totally constrains their lives. If you've got to sleep on a certain kind of memory foam mattress, it means you're trapped in your house. Your lifestyle is constrained because you have to every night adhere to these specific requirements for sleep. People believe this, and so their lives are constrained. Their whole lives are constrained by the need to not get very far from their posturepedic memory foam mattress. In fact, it's not true. If you're having trouble sleeping, it's got nothing to do with the mattress. Let's talk about insomnia. Insomnia is when you know you need sleep, you know you're tired, you know you have to get up and do important things in the morning. You have to be on top form, but you just can't sleep. And there's only one time that I experience that. And that's when I'm in the Posturepedic, when I'm in a motel room, in a beautiful downy bed, soft downy bed, and I need to do something in the next day. I can't sleep in that bed. I can sleep in the woods. I can sleep on a hard floor. I can sleep in the woods. But insomnia only strikes me when I'm in this nice, comfortable bed, which must tell you something about insomnia. Insomnia is a psychological condition. It has nothing to do with the mattress. It has to do with your brain and how you set things up. The easiest way to deal with insomnia is when you can't sleep, you get up and do stuff. It's easy. When you're tired, you go to sleep. When you can't sleep, you wake up and do things. The problem is that people constrain their lives so that they know they have to be to their 9-to-5 job at a certain time, and they've only allowed themselves 7 hours, and that the sleep has to fit into those 7 hours. Well, the easiest way to deal with insomnia is don't constrain yourself like that. If you can arrange your lifestyle so that you don't have to sleep on a set schedule, then you can simply sleep when you're tired and wake up and do stuff when you're not tired, when it doesn't work for you. I've learned a lot about sleep deprivation in my travels. So I will travel, usually about every month. I will go overseas. I suffer from jet lag. I'll spend a few nights sleeping in a plane and then wake up and have to deal with a new culture. And I've learned by doing this a lot, I'm sure pilots experience this, by doing this a lot, I realize that there are things I can do. Even though I'm sleep deprived, I can do all sorts of things. I just can't be very creative, but I can deal with the world. I can continue to function. In fact, if I land in a foreign country with 8 hours of sleep deprivation, I can still enjoy the thing. It's kind of like I'm drunk. My brain, I recognize, isn't totally functioning, but I can still do things. What happens after 24 hours without sleep is your creativity starts going way down low, and you can see your thought process beginning to disintegrate, even if you're not actually tired. But you can continue to function. And by pushing yourself and say, staying up all night and seeing what the effects are, by understanding that system, how it goes bad and how it works, you can deal more effectively with insomnia and with sleep deprivation, knowing how the system works. Let's talk about nightmares, those unpleasant dreams at night. We don't know what dreaming is, but it's obviously an extension of our thought processes during the day. When you wake up screaming at night because of some horrible dream that's taken place, it's really a message to you that there's something about your waking life that isn't right. When your waking life is well integrated, when it's happy, when things are doing well, when you're consistent with yourself, then you don't have nightmares. You have nightmares when things aren't going well. And you may not acknowledge this during the day, but your nightmares are telling you this, that things are not going well. If you're waking up in a cold sweat, that's a good indication that there's something you're not dealing with in the day that you've got to deal with. As I get to know sleep better, as I get to be more comfortable with myself, my dreaming state is simply an extension of my thought processes during the daytime. So I think of dreaming time as thinking time. I think about things during the day, I encounter problems during the day, and sleep is a time to work out those problems. And if you were to wake me up at any particular time during my REM sleep, my dreaming sleep, you'd find that I'm thinking about things that are relevant to my waking life. It's like sleep is this resource, this thought resource, and every night I go to this place, I go call in this thought resource to work out the problems of the day. When I wake up, like I've just done, I've resolved a lot of the problems of the previous day. I'm fresh, I'm creative, I'm ready to do things like make this video. Imagine the wonderful options you would have if you could learn to sleep anywhere. If you could figure out how to sleep in whatever circumstances you happen to be in at the time, that would be very freeing. It would mean you could go traveling without having to worry about accommodations, without having to worry about in advance about where you're going to sleep each night. You could work out your sleeping arrangements as you go along. And you think of the cowboys out on the plain on a big journey across the plain driving cattle. They're going to have to learn to sleep wherever they are. They've got their bedroll, and if the cattle happen to be in a canyon, then you figure out how to sleep in the canyon. You can do that too in an urban sense. In fact, I'm kind of an urban camper. I will wake up in the morning, I'll go traveling, I'll do things, and I may not know in the morning where I'm going to sleep at night. As nightfall approaches, I have to start figuring things out, figuring out where am I going to get the basic requirements for sleep. The basic requirements are really very simple. As I say, you need protection. Well, night happens to coincide with sleep. Under cover of darkness, there's lots of places you can find, in almost any environment, there are lots of places you can find where you are protected, at least until dawn. You have to find some warmth, so you have to have some bundling around you, like a sleeping bag or a blanket, and that depends a lot on the ambient temperature. Last night I slept in the back of a car. I had one light blanket, and that was sufficient for me because I knew that the temperature was going to be not lower than 60. I knew what I needed in that environment, and I knew that this light blanket was going to be enough. If you have this skill of sleeping anywhere, suddenly a lot of options open up to you, a lot of travel options, a lot of other things. But you have to train yourself for it. If you've spent your whole life sleeping on a soft, cushy mattress with a comforter and all the Martha Stewart essentials, you have to train yourself. If you try to sleep in the back seat of a car after sleeping on a mattress all your life, you're going to have a rough night of sleep the first time. If you try sleeping on a floor, you're going to have a rough time. But if you push yourself, if you're willing to push your body, you can train yourself to sleep almost anywhere. I could sleep on this beach quite comfortably. The sand here, as long as I have some a blanket under me or some sort of ground cover, the sand is just enough padding to make me comfortable. But I had to train to get to this situation. Just like training for any athletic event, you have to train yourself to be able to sleep anywhere. You're spending about a third of your life sleeping. That's a third of your years. If you live 80 years, you're spending at least 20 years of those 80 years sleeping. So why not get to know it? This is an essential function in life. You're making accommodations for sleep every single day. You're making some sort of accommodations for sleep. You're shaping your life around the ability to sleep. So why not get to know this function? You need to experiment. You need to push yourself to see what circumstances you can sleep in and what you can't. It's a really important function in life. You can't be afraid of sleep. You can't be afraid of insomnia. Part of the problem of insomnia is not so much that you can't sleep, but you're afraid of not sleeping, and that just makes the problem worse. If you understand how sleep deprivation works, how your body can continue to function even when sleep deprived, how your brain works at various levels of recharge, if you can experiment with all these things, you're going to lead a much better life, because sleep is not something you fear. It's something you see as an asset, something you work with. I see sleep as an enormous vacation, a great vacation I get to take every day, where I get to work out my problems and wake up refreshed with a new sense of creativity and direction that I didn't have when I went to sleep at night. If you're conscious during the day for a long period of time, something gets depleted. It's like there's some energy force that gets depleted over the course of the day, and sleep rejuvenates that energy force and brings you back to peak performance. So understand sleep, experiment with it, and enjoy it as the vacation it is.